Eamon and Kruma sat in her bedroom, a silent world of late afternoon shadows and golden light. The air was thick with the scent of mangoes from the tree outside her window and the heavy, unspoken worry that lived in her chest. On her desk, the ultrasound. Printout lay where she'd left it, its grainy shapes both a mystery and a promise. She traced the outline of the tiny figure with a trembling finger. Her mind was a storm. How had it come to this? She was only 20, halfway through university, with dreams of becoming a journalist, of traveling, of making a difference. Now, the life growing inside her seemed to have changed everything: her body, her future, her family. Fear twisted in her stomach, but beneath it was something else, a strange, unbreakable bond. Already she could not imagine a world without this child. Down the hall, laughter and clattering dishes drifted from the kitchen. Her mother Sephu and Ibena were preparing dinner, the same way they always had. But nothing felt the same anymore. Every sound in the house felt sharper, every glance heavier with meaning. "AMA, dinner's ready." Efua's voice, warm and steady, echoed up the staircase. AMA hesitated. She took one last look at the ultrasound and tucked it into her drawer, as if hiding it might make the reality fade. But the truth was too heavy to ignore. She went downstairs, her heart pounding. The dining table was set with care. Fufu, groundnut soup, fried plantains, and a pitcher of bissap. Efua moved with quiet efficiency, her hair wrapped in a bold, patterned scarf, her face a mask of serenity. Ibena, laughing as she arranged the cutlery, wore a necklace of bright beads, her cropped hair framing her radiant face. Across from them sat Kwaku and Chromafu's older brother and Ama's beloved uncle. Kwaku, tall and broad-shouldered bore, scars from his years as a community organizer. He rarely spoke of his struggles, but his presence was grounding. Ibena glanced up, her smile flickering as she noticed the shadows under Ama's eyes. "Everything all right, Ama?" she asked, her tone light but laced with concern. Ama managed a small smile. "Just tired, Ma." Kweku's deep, steady eyes watched her. "You look like you're carrying the weight of the world, Ama." Efua set down the pot and joined them. "Let's eat," she said, but the words seemed to hang in the air. Incomplete. As they began, conversation lagged. Ibena tried to fill the silence with stories from the market, but AMA barely heard her. She felt like an outsider in her own home, her secret growing larger with every passing day. Finally, Kwaku broke the tension. "Ama, if there's something you need to tell us, you know we're here for you." Ama's hands trembled. She wanted to speak, to confess, but the words stuck in her throat. Before she could answer, the doorbell rang. Ama's best friend, Malika Okoye, burst in, bringing with her a gust of fresh air and a whirlwind of energy. Malika was everything. Ama wasn't right now confident. Bright, her long twists bouncing as she laughed. She wore a kente scarf and a smile that could melt stone. "Ama, come on. I've been calling you all day," she said, plopping down next to her at the table without. Waiting for an invitation, the adults exchanged glances, but Ibena only chuckled. "Malika, you're always welcome here." Ama smiled for real this time. Malika squeezed her hand under the table, her eyes searching. "You look tired." "Just a long week," Ama murmured. Milaik lowered her voice. "You want to talk? I'm here. You know that, right?" Ama nodded, swallowing back tears. Efua watched her daughter, her heart aching. She wished she could protect Ama from the world, from heartbreak, from whatever secret was eating her alive. But she knew better than anyone that some journeys had to be taken alone, that same evening in the heart of Accra's business district. Kwabena Adisa sat in his sleek office atop a Hira's, gazing out at the city lights. 33, tall and striking, he was known as a sharp, ambitious CEO. Yet tonight, he felt lost. On his desk, a stack of papers waited for his signature, but his mind was elsewhere. He saw Ama's face every time he closed his eyes, her bright, inquisitive gaze, her quick laugh. There was something about her, a pull he couldn't resist. But he was a married man. Zuri, his wife, was a beautiful, poised woman with a heart for charity and a dazzling social media presence. Their marriage was a perfect picture to the outside world, but inside cracks had begun to show. Zuri entered, her colorful dress swishing around her legs. She paused, arms crossed, dark eyes narrowed. "You're working late again," she said. Kwabena didn't look up. Latstadushi stepped closer. "I know you're hiding something." He met her gaze, his voice quiet but firm. "Zuri, not tonight." She held up her phone, showing him a photo. Kwabena and AMA, laughing together over coffee. "Who is she?" Kwabena's heart raced. He searched for words, but none came. "Don't lie to me," Zuri said, her voice icy. "If you won't tell me, I'll find out myself." Back at the NKRUMAH house. Ama and Malika sat on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the darkness. "Ama, you have to tell someone," Malika whispered. "You can't carry this alone." Ama looked away. "What if no one believes me? What if it destroys my family?" Malika squeezed her hand. "Your family loves you." "And I'm not going anywhere." Ama nodded, tears spilling over. For a moment, she let herself lean on her friend, drawing strength from Malika's unwavering support. Inside, Efua and Abina sat in the dim kitchen, voices low. "She's not herself," Abina said, worry creasing her brow. "Something's wrong." Efua nodded. "We have to be patient." "She'll tell us when she's ready." Abina reached for her hand. "We'll get through this." Together, the next morning, Ama found herself at her favorite park seeking solace. The city was just waking up, vendors calling out their wares. Children chasing each other under the jacaranda trees. She sat on a bench, lost in thought, when Kwabena appeared. "Mind if I sit?" he asked. She nodded, her heart beating fast. "You look tired," he said gently. Ama tried to shrug it off. "Just life." Kwabena hesitated. "Ama, I know you're going through something. I just want you to know you're not alone." She looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Why do you care so much? We barely know each other." Kwabena was silent a long moment. "I don't know. I just do." They sat together in the soft morning light, neither of them noticing Zuri, watching from a distance, her expression stormy. The days blurred together. Ama's secret grew heavier, her body changing in ways she could barely understand. Every morning, she checked her reflection, searching for signs, wondering when the truth would become impossible to hide. Malaik visited often, bringing laughter and small gifts, bright scarves, tiny bracelets, snacks from the market. Yet even Malika's warmth couldn't melt the chill that had settled in the Nkrumah home. One rainy afternoon, Ama sat in her room, knees drawn to her chest, staring at her phone. A message from Malika blinked on the screen. "You need to tell them. Or at least figure out who the father is, AMA. This isn't going to go away." AMA's thoughts whirled. Her mind always returned to Kwabena, his gentle concern. The way he listened, how he made her feel seen. But it was complicated, impossible. She barely knew him, and yet she couldn't deny what was in her heart. She pressed her palm over her belly and whispered, "It's just you and me, little one. We'll get through this, I promise." That evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the tension was palpable. Efua and Abina tried to keep things light, but cracks were starting to show. Watched AMA closely, as if he could read her thoughts. "AMA, I know things are hard, but secrets have a way of growing. If you trust us, we can help." Fork clattered to her plate. She couldn't hold it in any longer. "I'm pregnant," she blurted, her voice barely above a whisper. The room fell silent. Efua's face drained of color. Abina's eyes widened. Kweku's expression was unreadable, but gentle. Ama's hands shook. "I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you." Abina was the first to move, rushing to Ama's side, wrapping her in a fierce embrace. Our daughter Ama, nothing will change that. Ifua's voice was thick with emotion. Who is the father? Ama looked away. It's complicated. I don't know how to explain. Asterisk, the news spread quickly through their small neighborhood. Whispers followed Ama wherever she went. Some neighbors looked at her with pity, others with judgment. Malika remained her unwavering shield, standing beside her, daring anyone to say a word. At home, Efwa and Abina argued late into the night. Efwa wanted to protect Ama to shield her from gossip and pain. Abina, ever practical, worried about the future, how they would support another child, how Ama would finish her education. Kwaku, meanwhile, sat with Ama on the porch, telling stories from his own wild youth, reminding her that every storm passes, and that family is meant to carry one another through. I won't ask again, he said, placing a steady hand on her shoulder, but if you ever need to talk, I'm here. Ama nodded, overwhelmed by gratitude. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flicker of hope. In the Adisa home, Ziri sat at her vanity, scrolling through social media. Her followers adored her beauty, her style, her effortless grace. But none of them saw the crack in her smile, the growing suspicion in her heart. Kwabena tried to pretend things were normal. He spent more hours at work, threw himself into new business ventures, anything to avoid the tension at home. But Zuri was relentless. She hired a private investigator, combed through Kwabena's phone records, and finally found what she was looking for: a connection between her husband and Eamon Krumah. One night, she confronted him, waving a stack of photos in his face. Explain. This, she demanded, her voice trembling with rage. Kwabena paled. Zuri, it's not what you think. She laughed bitterly. Don't insult me. I know you've been seeing her, and I know about the surrogacy. Kwabena's heart thudded in his chest. Zuri, please. But Zuri cut him off, voice cold as glass. If you won't tell me the truth, I'll find it myself. Asterisk, determined to take control, Ziri penned an anonymous letter to Afua. She wrote of secrets and betrayal, of affairs and married men, hinting that Ama's child was the result of a scandalous relationship. The letter arrived on a gray morning, slipped under the door. Efwa read it in silence, her hands shaking. When she finished, she called Abina and Kwaku into the kitchen. Ama, she said, voice trembling. I received this today. Ama read the letter, her face turning pale. This isn't true. I swear, Mama, I would never Abena snatched. The letter, reading it aloud, her voice shaking with anger. This is absurd. It's just someone trying to stir trouble. But if Yua's doubt lingered, what if it's true? She whispered, tears in her eyes. What if we don't know the whole story? Ama fled, unable to bear the accusations. She ran to the park, the same bench where she'd met Kwabena so many times before. Asterisk, Kwabena was waiting, his face drawn with worry. When he saw Ama's tears, he stood, reaching for her. They think I'm lying, she sobbed. My family. They think I've done something terrible. Kwabena pulled her into a gentle embrace. Believe you, Ama. No matter what happens, I believe you. Neither of them noticed Zuri watching from a distance, her fists clenched. She wasn't angry anymore, she was determined. Kwabena wouldn't tell her the truth, she would tear it out herself. Asterisk, Ama's pregnancy progressed, and the day of reckoning arrived sooner than expected. Sharp pains woke her in the early morning hours. Ma, it's happening, she cried out. Efwa rushed to her side, panic and determination warring on her face. We need to get you to the hospital now. At the hospital, chaos erupted. Doctors and nurses swirled around Ama, preparing for the delivery. In the corner, a nurse watched her uniform, crisp, but her eyes cold Zuri. Disguised and determined to see everything firsthand, Ama didn't notice her. She was too caught up in pain and fear. Kwabena burst into the room, pushing past staff. I'm here, Ama. You're not alone. As Amma squeezed his hand, Zuri approached, voice dripping with venom. I don't think you're supposed to be. Here, Mr. Adisa, this is a family matter. Kwabana's eyes narrowed. Who are you? I'm Nurse Zuri. I've been assigned to AMA's case. It's fascinating how much you've been involved. Almost suspiciously so. Amma gasped, looking at Kwabana. What is she talking about? Zuri smiled, holding up a USB stick. Maybe you'd like to explain why your name is all over her medical records. Kwabana's face went ashen. That's impossible, is it? Zuri murmured, eyes gleaming. Asterisk back home, Ifua's intuition burned. Something wasn't right. She dove into research, combing through hospital records, news, articles, and online forums. Eventually, she discovered a scandal at the surrogacy clinic, where Kwabana and Zuri had once sought help. There had been mistakes, horrific ones. Mix-ups, lost files, lives changed forever. Efwa pieced it together. AMA had been made a surrogate for Kwabana Adis without her knowledge or consent. Her heart broke. She gathered the evidence and sat across from Ama, who cradled her newborn son. Ama, Ifua said, voice trembling, I need to tell you something. The hospital made a mistake. Kwabana is the father. You were never supposed to carry his child. Ama's world tilted. You mean I was used? I used my body without my consent? F1 nodded, tears streaming down her face. So sorry, Ama. Asterisk, the news broke like a tidal wave. Zuri, unable to accept defeat and desperate to protect her marriage, leaked the story to the press. Within hours, headlines screamed across social media. Prominent CEO linked to surrogacy scandal, young university student at center. AMA's phone buzzed relentlessly. Some messages were cruel strangers calling her names, accusing her of lying, of trying to ruin a good man's life. Others were from friends, confused and scared, distancing themselves as the gossip spread. Through campus and neighborhood alike, at university, AMA was summoned by the dean. The office was cold. The dean's expression hard. Your presence is causing a distraction, he said. We cannot have this kind of attention on our institution. AMA pleaded, but I've done nothing wrong. His answer was final. You are suspended, effective immediately. She walked home in tears, her dreams slipping through her fingers. At home, the Nkrumahs faced their own nightmare. Their neighbors whispered and stared. Some crossed the street rather than meet Afua or Abina's eyes. Hate mail arrived in the post. The market women who once greeted Abina with smiles now turned their backs. Abina tried to remain strong, but at night she wept. Holding Efwa close, we did everything right, she whispered. Why is this happening? Efua's dignity remained unbroken. She walked Amma to the market, head high, daring anyone to challenge her daughter's right to exist, to be loved. Kwaku visited daily, sometimes with groceries, sometimes just to sit and listen. He said gently, the world is cruel, but you are not alone. Asterisk Kwabana, furious at the media storm, released a public statement defending Ama's character. He called her brave, intelligent, and innocent of any wrongdoing. But every attempt to help only fanned the flames. The press called it a CEO's desperate cover-up. Zuri, working behind the scenes, fed rumors to tabloid blogs, painting AMA as manipulative, a gold digger, even a homewrecker. Social media followers rallied to her side, sending Ama a barrage of hateful messages. Ama's world shrank to the walls of her home and the safety of Malaka's arms. Efwa had finally had enough. She and Abina tracked Zuri to a chic cafe, where she sat surrounded by her loyal friends, dressed impeccably, her expression cold. Afua approached, her voice calm but steely. We know what you've done, Zuri. You've been spreading lies about my daughter. Zuri set down her cup, her smile glacial. If your daughter can't handle the spotlight, maybe she shouldn't have gotten herself into this situation. Abina stepped forward, her voice shaking with rage. Ama never asked for any of this. The hospital made a mistake. And you're trying to destroy her life for your own pride. Zori's mask slipped. Her voice trembled with both anger and pain. That child is a threat to my marriage. I was just protecting what's mine. Afua's eyes flashed. No child belongs to you, Zuri. You don't get to play God with people's lives. Other patrons were staring now, but Ifwa didn't care. She stared Zuri down until Zuri looked away, her hands trembling. Kwabena, exhausted by the accusations and uncertainty, insisted on a DNA test. He arranged for it at an independent lab, suspecting Zuri might try to interfere. AMA was hesitant, but agreed. This is the only way to end the lies. Let's do it. The day of the test was tense. Ama sat in the waiting room, her baby in her arms, flanked by Efwa Abina. Kwaku Maleka was there too, holding Ama's hand. Zuri arrived, her presence sending a ripple of discomfort through the room. She sat across from Ama, her expression smug. Good luck. You're going to need it. Kwabena ignored her, focusing on AMA and the baby. No matter what happens, I'm here for you. A week later, the results came in. Kwabena gathered every Wanama, her family, Maleka, even Zuri. The lab technician handed over the envelope. Kwabena's hands shook as he opened it. It's confirmed, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I am the father. Ama's heart thudded. Relief, anger, fear, and hope all warred within her. Zuri's face crumpled, but she said nothing. Zuri's world was unraveling. She could not bear the humiliation of a public divorce, the loss of power and status. She needed leverage. One night, when Ama and her baby were staying at Efua's house, Zuri made her move. Disguised in a headscarf and sunglasses, she waited for her chance. When Efua stepped away to answer a call, Zuri slipped into the nursery. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of danger. Gently, Zuri lifted him into her arms and disappeared into the night by the time Ifu returned. The crib was empty. Ama's scream rang through the house. He's gone. Mama, he's gone. On the crib, a note in Zuri's neat handwriting. If Kwabene wants his son back, he knows where to find me. Panic gripped the Nkrumah family. Abina called the police. Kwaku sprang into action, calling in favors from friends on the force. Kwabena arrived to do whatever it took. The police traced Zuri to a lonely farmhouse outside the city. The night was thick with tension as they approached. Ifo and Kwabena exchanged a look-a silent vow that they would not leave without the baby. Inside, Zuri sat in a rocking chair, cradling the child. Her face was serene, almost peaceful, but her eyes were wild. You're too late, she said softly. This child doesn't belong to you. Kwabena stepped forward, voice trembling. Zuri, please, let him go. Efua spoke gently. You've been hurt, Zuri, but this isn't the way. Let us help you. For a moment, Zuri hesitated. Then her resolve crumbled. Tears streamed down her face as she handed the baby to Efua. Police. Officers moved in, restraining Zuri as she sobbed. Ama rushed forward, gathering her child into her arms. Weeping with relief. The days that followed were a blur of police statements, therapy appointments, and whispered apologies. The media, briefly frenzied by the kidnapping, soon found another story to chase. AMA, with the support of her family and Maleka, found her strength again. She returned to her studies online, determined to finish her degree. Her blog, where she wrote about her ordeal, quickly gained followers. Young mothers, survivors of medical negligence, and women who felt voiceless reached out. AMA became a beacon of hope and resilience. Kwabena, shaken by all he had lost and nearly lost, committed himself to fatherhood. He attended parenting classes, volunteered at organizations for single mothers, and became a fixture in AMA and the baby's life. Their relationship was no longer defined by accident or scandal, but by mutual respect and the shared love for their son. At home. Change was in the air. Efwa and Abina, once inseparable, found themselves drifting apart. The ordeal had revealed cracks in their partnership. old wounds reopened. New doubts seeded. One evening, after putting the baby to sleep, Ifwa sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Abena, she said quietly, I need to be honest. I've changed. I can't explain it, but I feel like I need space to figure out who I am. Abena nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I understand. I love you, Afua. That won't change. They decided, painfully but peacefully, to part as partners. But their bond as co-parents and family remained strong. Ama watched her mothers navigate their new reality with grace and maturity. She realized that love, like family, could change shape and still endure. Kwaku, ever the anchor, remained close, helping with the baby, offering advice, and telling stories to make Ama laugh. Malaika, her best friend and confidant, encouraged her to embrace her new identity: a mother, a survivor, a leader. Ama's story became one of transformation. What began in confusion and fear ended in hope. She carried her son on her back, her head high, moving forward into a future she had never imagined but now claimed as her own. Ama's blog, New Roots, started as a diary for her pain. But as she poured her heart into each post, her voice grew stronger. She wrote about the betrayal by the hospital, the fear she felt as a single mother, the pain of public shaming, and the moments of quiet joy with her son. Her words resonated. Soon women from across Ghana and even abroad were commenting, sharing their own stories of medical mistakes, of being dismissed, of finding courage when everyone expects them to break. AMA responded to every message. Sometimes, late into the night, her son sleeping peacefully beside her, Malakea became her biggest cheerleader, encouraging Ame to take her message further. You have a gift, Malika said one evening as they walked through the market. Baby strapped to Ama's back. You can't hide behind a blog forever. Ama smiled, her confidence growing. Maybe I can start a support group, or give talks at the university when they finally let me back. Malika grinned. That's the AMA I know. You're unstoppable. Kwabanas. Life had changed in ways he never imagined. He moved out of the luxury apartment he once shared with Zuri, choosing a modest place closer to AMA and his son. He stepped back from day-to-day management at Adiz's Beverages, giving more time to charity work, especially organizations focused on maternal health and children's rights. He started therapy, working through his guilt and shame. In his sessions, he talked about the pressure he always felt to be perfect, to live up to his father's legacy. I want to be a different kind of man, he told his therapist. A better father, a better friend. Someone my son can be proud of. Gradually, he and Ama learned to co-parent. It wasn't always easy. There were awkward silences and painful reminders of all they'd lost. But there was also laughter late night, diaper changes, shared meals, and the unspoken understanding that they were in this together. One evening, after putting their son to bed, Ama looked at Kwabena across the kitchen table. Thank you, she said softly. For what? He asked, surprised. For staying. For trying. Kwabena reached for her hand, his touch gentle. I'll always be here, Ama. For both of you. Ifua and Abina navigated their separation with grace. They continued to live together for a while, sharing parenting duties and supporting AMA. But eventually, Abina found a small apartment in the city. It's close enough for daily visits. Ifua threw herself into her work, joining committees on women's health and fair medical practices. She visited the hospital that had changed their lives, demanding changes in policy, transparency, and better support for patients. She also started to let herself hope again. The pain of her breakup with Abina lingered, but she found comfort in new friendships, especially with Maxwell, a soft-spoken community organizer she met at a health conference. They began meeting for coffee, then dinners, long walks along the river. With Maxwell, Ifua felt seen. valued not just as a mother but as a woman with her own dreams and fears. Abina, meanwhile, found healing in creative expression. She started making jewelry again, selling her bold, beautiful pieces at local markets. Her designs, inspired by Ghanaian textiles and stories, became popular, and she was soon invited to showcase her work at a gallery. Despite the end of their partnership, Uwa and Abina remained friends. On weekends, they gathered with AMA and the baby for long meals. Laughter, and sometimes tears. *MALAIKA, always the supportive friend, was inspired by AMA's courage. She realized she'd been hiding her own dreams of becoming a writer, of telling stories about strong African women with AMA's encouragement. Malika submitted her first essay to a local magazine. When it was published, she cried tears of joy, together. AMA and Malika organized a community event for young women, an afternoon of storytelling, poetry, and music. They called it Daughters of Strength. That day, dozens of girls and women gathered, sharing their stories and cheering for each other. AMA stood at the front, her son on her hip, her voice steady as she told her story not as a victim, but as a survivor and a leader. The applause was thunderous, and for the first time, since her world had turned upside down, AMA felt truly whole. Kwaku Nkrumah remained the steadfast rock in AMA's life. He taught her how to tie a baby wrap, how to soothe a crying child, and how to stand tall in the face of adversity. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch, Kwaku shared a story from his youth, a time he had failed, been shamed, and forced to start over. "We all have chapters we wish we could rewrite," he said, his deep voice soothing. "But the story isn't finished, AMA. You're still writing yours." AMA nodded, her heart full. The hospital could not ignore the mounting public pressure. Ama's blog posts, Afua's advocacy, and Kwabina's support forced the administration to launch a thorough investigation. A panel of independent experts reviewed the surrogacy scandal. Dr. Benson, the physician responsible for the mix-up, was fired. The hospital issued a public apology not just to AMA, but to all families affected by their negligence. AMA was invited to speak at a press conference. Her hands shook as she stepped up to the microphone, but her voice was clear. No woman should ever have her body used without her consent. No family should have to fight for the truth alone. We deserve better. The applause was overwhelming with the scandal behind them. AMA's family began to heal. Kwabina's divorce from Zuri was finalized quietly. Zuri, after a period of bitterness and denial, retreated from the public eye. She moved abroad, starting over in a city where no one knew her story. For a while, she sent angry emails and notes, but eventually, even those stopped coming. Ama's university, under public pressure, reinstated her. She returned to campus, her head held high, surrounded by classmates and professors who now saw her not as a scandal but as a symbol of courage. She finished her degree, balancing studies, motherhood, and advocacy. Her son, now a toddler, brought joy to everyone. He met his laughter, a reminder that even out of chaos, beauty could grow. On the eve of her graduation, the whole family gathered for a celebration. Efwa and Maxwell, Abina, Kwaku, Malika, and Kwabina filled the house with music, food, and laughter. After dinner, Ama stood up to speak. "I wouldn't be here without all of you. Thank you for carrying me through the storm. Thank you for believing in me, even when I couldn't believe in myself." Kwabina, holding their son, smiled with pride. "You've taught us all what it means to be strong." Malika raised her glass. "To Ama, the bravest woman I know." They toasted, and as the night wore on, Ama felt a peace she had not known in years. Life moved on, as it always does. AMA started a foundation for women affected by medical malpractice. She traveled across Ghana, speaking at schools and community centers, inspiring young women to use their voices. Kwabina balanced his responsibilities as a business leader and a father, determined to raise his son with empathy and integrity. Efwa and Abina, Though no longer partners, remained a team, proof that love in all its forms could transform but never truly end. KWAKU. Ever the storyteller recorded the family's journey for future generations. Aleka's writing career blossomed, her stories reaching readers far and wide, and Amawentz, a frightened girl with a secret, walked boldly into her future. Her son at her side, her heart open to all the possibilities. Ahead, months passed. Seasons changed. Ama's story, once whispered in shame and fear, became a banner of hope and justice. The little family Ama, her son Efua, Abina, Kwaku, and even Kwabena found new rhythms, new joys, and a deep acceptance of the past. Ama's foundation, Daughters of Strength, grew beyond her dreams. She traveled from bustling Accra to quiet villages, listening to women, sharing her story, and fighting for safer, more compassionate health care. She spoke at conferences, sat with government officials, and mentored young mothers who, like her, had been told their lives were over. Her son, often toddling at her side, became a symbol of her determination and grace. Kwabena, now a fixture in his child's life, balanced work and family with humility. He grew closer to Ama not as lovers, but as true partners in parenting. Their disagreements softened into laughter, and their bond, forged in fire, came unbreakable. Efwa and Abina remained pillars for Ama and her son. They attended every event, every milestone, sometimes together, sometimes with their new partners, always as family. Their love, though transformed, was no less real. It had simply found a different shape. Doku, the ever-wise uncle, wrote down their family's story in a battered notebook, determined that his nephew would grow up knowing the meaning of courage and community. Maleka, now a published writer, found her calling as a storyteller for girls who needed to see themselves as heroes. She and Ama continued to lift each other up, no matter where life led them. One golden afternoon, the family gathered beneath the ancient baobab tree in Kweku's courtyard. The air was filled with music, laughter, drums, and the gentle clatter of plates. Ama's son ran from lap to lap, chased by Maleka and watched over by his grandmothers. Ama stood looking at the faces around her. Her heart swelled with gratitude. She thought of all they'd survived: secrets, shame, betrayal, loss, and all they'd gained: truth, respect, unbreakable love. Kwabena raised his glass. To Ama, whose courage changed all our lives. To family, Kwaku added, in every shape it takes. Efwa and Abina smiled at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They had not lost each other. They had simply grown. Ama lifted her son into her arms and spoke, her voice strong and sure. We are more than what happens to us. We are what we choose to become after. We are root sand. We are wings. The sun set over Accra, painting the sky in colors as bright and bold as their kente scarves. Laughter rang out, echoing into the future. Ama knew there would be more storms, more days when fear or doubt might return. But she also knew now she was never alone and never powerless. She, like her mothers, her friends, her family, was made for rising. And so the story ends not with a period, but with a comma, as all great stories do, because new chapters are always waiting to be written. The end.